Okay. All right, so here we go. So Dr. Margaret Thorley. Dr. Margaret Thorley is an award-winning entrepreneur, international speaker and dynamic event host, CEO of Hope and Restoration, a non-profit organisation. Dr. Margaret Thorley is a powerhouse of inspiration, a multi-award winning entrepreneur, an international speaker, author, and host of the acclaimed Fathers Talk show. For over 40 years, she has dedicated her life to transforming communities through hope and restoration. This non-profit organisation has trained and empowered more than 1,700 single fathers, lone parents, and women to overcome challenges and build successful businesses. A passionate advocate for single fathers, Dr. Thorley combines compassion, leadership, and practical wisdom to help others rewrite their stories, discover their purpose, and walk confidently into their destiny. So, it is with great pleasure that I welcome the lovely, let me find her, Dr. Margaret Thorley. Let me bring you up into the main screen. Dr. Margaret Thorley, thank you.
Thank you very much. And to all the speakers, you are amazing. Now, I want to speak to you how we elevate our visibility through storytelling. But I'm going to tell you a story about myself. I grew up in a children's home. Imagine 15 girls under one roof, aged between 14, 15, and 16. I was in the bracket of age 14. The staff were overwhelmed, very tired. So you have to learn very quickly to defend yourself. But I was truly blessed by God because I had 4 ladies that was around me all the time. And one day, one of the ladies looked at me and said, "You're different." I'm like, "What?" And from that time on, she made it her mission to look after me when I'm coming from school and make sure I did not get to any of the fights. It was tough growing up in the children's home, very challenging. But I had to choose a path that was completely different to the other girls, which meant I had fewer friends. I didn't mind. But what it taught me is to have strong values that set me apart from the girls. Now, I want to ask you a question. What are the boundaries have you put in place that you would not cross or allow anyone to cross those boundaries? Imagine at age 14, you have to put a boundary in, and that stops you to get into trouble. I learned very quickly to say no. And now I say no quite regularly. I learned to say no to drugs. I learned to say no to alcohol, prostitution, definitely peer pressure. I was prepared and ready at all times. But I learned to stand still at the same time when trouble comes at me. I also learned to put my fist up, ready to fight if needed to be. But majority of the time, I made sure I was out of the children's home, particularly at the weekend. What kept me moving while I was in there? Resilience. I made resilience to become my best friend, to bounce back very quickly, because I needed to find out how to sort my problems out and make sure I don't get into trouble. The next key that I use a lot, up to today, I still use this key. Imagine at the age 14, you still use the same key, and that is determination. Determination, determination. Now, I didn't quite understand that word. But all I knew, I wanted to survive. I don't know what survive looks like at the age of 14. I wanted to be successful. What does that look like? All I know, I don't want to be that. And definitely, I want to change. I don't want people to call me by number because I used to be called Margaret too. And that I felt it stuck for quite a while in my life. But as I grew up, I decided to change. But one of the greatest lessons that I learned at that time, at that moment, is to be you, be your truth. Stand for what you believe. Don't let anybody take you away from that. I learned also, do not allow your struggles to define who you are and who you become, but rather use them to become your stepping stone to be the better person you want to be. Throughout that journey, I realized there's a seed of purpose has been planted in my heart. And that seed is to support, to encourage other people to overcome their challenges that they faced all the time, and for them to become the best version of who they are. It's so important that we tell our stories because our stories can transform other people's life. Now, how many of you here that have a story to tell, but you're sitting on it? I want to encourage you to tell your story because our story, as we tell them, can transform other people's life. I was running a business workshop, and one of the sessions, I was telling my story, growing up in the children's home, the challenges that I faced and how I had to overcome those challenges. And I had this gentleman came up to me after the session, and he says to me, I've never met anybody who spoke so passionately about growing up in the children's home and also kind of how they overcome their challenges. He said, I grew up in a children's home and I got stage 4 cancer. And I want to tell my story. Was that coincidence? Not really. Because I have the great belief that every one of us were in the same place for a purpose, for a reason. And that gentleman became our success story through the business startups workshop that would specifically run for single fathers and men. Our story. Your story is your heartbeat of your business. Your story is your unique selling point. Your story sets you apart in the noisy marketplace. And as you tell your story, it also validates you to become an expert in your industry. So tell your story. As we tell our story, it brings a lot of changes. How many of you here started your business because there's a purpose, there's a reason? You want to tell your story. Now, for me, I started my business because I'm laughing. Normally, when I'm running a workshop, I would wear bright red lipstick because I wanted a red lipstick. And back in those days, there was no red lipstick for women of color or Black women. And that challenged me. I'm like, no, this needs to be changed. So at the age of 21, I started my first business, selling cosmetics for women of color. There wasn't much at that time. But I went to a wholesaler, and then they had cosmetics, very few. And as I bought them, went home, looked at the product, and one of them had the dress to the USA, New York. I imagine 21, 22. There I go. Took the plane. And when I look for the wholesalers that sells cosmetics for women of color, and guess what? I saturated the market importing cosmetics from the US into the UK. I did that for 13 years. I changed the market. I changed the face of the market. But I love challenges. I remember I was in the market. I was standing there. A gentleman came. We were having a conversation. And he says to me, you know what? Black people don't go to the pub to drink. I smile and I step forward closer to him. And I said, you know what? You got the wrong person. Because this black woman, she goes to the pub, she drinks. And I tell you what, I'm going to buy a pub and I'm going to get you to work for me. And that's exactly what I did. Within 6 months, I went in to get a diploma in pub and bar management. And from there onwards, and of course, I employed the guy who said that we don't drink from the pub. I became the first black woman, single parent, to own her pub and her restaurant. It was great at the time. Excellent. But for me, I hate injustice. I want to change things. We currently work with single fathers. Why? And I get asked that a lot. Why single fathers? Well, I realized through my journey that the single fathers, after the lockdown, a lot of single fathers lost their business and they lost their jobs. There was mental health and depression. After the COVID, I decided that I was going to change that. And that's what I did. So we offer business workshops, particularly for single fathers, to inspire them, to motivate them, and to start their business with zero finance and where they are. And that's where I met the gentleman with a cancer, where we coached and mentored him, and now he get booked to speak. Our stories is very, very important. I also learned through my journey, it's not how you started that is important. It's how you finish the race of life, your race of life, nobody else but yours. You have the tools to make different choices, different decisions. And I want to encourage you today, take the step, and you only need to take one step to take you where you need to be. I want to say to you, thank you so much for listening to me. I really appreciate it. I am an event host, the Father Talk Show, as you can see, Kings in a Business Conversation. And that's what I do now. And I'd love you to join us. We got an amazing event that's coming up this Saturday. The Father Talk Show. Inspire, motivate single fathers to be who they are. Thank you so much for listening to me. I really appreciate you. God bless.
Wow. There's a word that comes to mind, Dr. Margaret. Can I tell you what the word that came to mind to me while I was listening halfway through about your journey? The word was phenomenal.
Thank you.
And you know what? I'm also a Red Lipstick fan as well. And so me and you can do the red lipstick. We can be the red lipstick team together. I'm all about the red lipstick. Okay, so let's have a look here. I'm going to join you in the spotlight, if that is okay. I'm still letting it all sink in. So I'm doing a few little bits and bobs here while I just let it settle on my mind. So give me a second and let me invite you. Let's get us both together. Okay. Can everybody see us? Are we all together on everybody's screens?